Travis Wayne Goodsell. So, Mormons have not had a legitimate actual prophet to lead and guide them. So they're a little bit confused when I'm demonstrating all of these prophecies for you and telling you it's in the learning of the Jews, and that Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon are prophecies in the learning of the Jews, and you just don't see it because of the false prophets of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints telling you you're Christian and that Jesus is your Christ. So I understand that can be confusing, but there's no reason for hate comments and death threats. That's not right. So, as it's been revealed that my prophecy for the 24th has come to pass in 2 days. I'm not going to do videos tomorrow unless there's an emergency. And so today is it, unless the 24th is just civil unrest throughout the nation, in which we still have to live our lives and survive, going shopping while people are being murdered around us. Dear God, the scene from Mars Attacks. Ooh. Ooh. Oh, 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 oh. We either need to watch that today. That is appropriate. I don't know if there's a theme song. There's the Dwight Yoakam or whatever from that movie. But yeah, Mars, Lucifer. Yep. So I want to make sure that, if you noticed, there's more substance to the videos I've been doing lately. And we're still sticking on the same theme of the day that shall burn as an oven that Joseph Smith in the Book of Mormon warns you about. Because Joseph Smith's second vision was receiving the Book of Mormon with the warning, there's a day that shall burn as an oven. So I'm giving you this Book of Mormon. And the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints' prophets tell you it's the restoration of the gospel. As if they've never even read the Book of Mormon themselves. It's humiliating that Mormons get all offended and upset that the prophets are playing them as chumps and stealing their money from them and using that money to commit crimes that will end up murdering Mormons. And they blame me. They're upset with me. Dear God, focus your anger on the appropriate people who caused your anger. Not on the people who brings it up and exposes you as stupid. So, the selections from the Book of Moses. We're going to do this in the learning of the Jews. Because it is. This is from the, the church and even the community of Christ claim that this is a translation by Joseph Smith. And there's misinformation all around. This is not a translation. This is a revelation. Like the Book of Mormon. Not like the papyri in the Book of Abraham. That is a translation, not a revelation. The King Follett Discourse, translation, not a revelation. And you see in the book of Abraham that he is using the Genesis story to revise it from the Genesis story here in Moses with his new knowledge about Elohim. Now, previously, his dad was a Jewish Kabbalist and taught Joseph Smith all about Jewish Kabbalism. And in Jewish Kabbalism, yeah, they do have Elohim as a singular plural magistry crap that was created by Constantine. But Joseph is correct in the King Follett Discourse that Elohim is supposed to be translated in the plural, not singular, in the Hebrew text of the Bible. Not the biblical Hebrew text, which was created between 800 and 1000 CE. And they totally covered it up because of their hatred towards the Samaritans and fury with Christians for taking over their scriptures. And so thus the Jews don't accept the Gospels as theirs when it was theirs. Because the Bible documents were written during the Roman period time before Roman Emperor Constantine. And so in the 200s, you see that there are a group of followers of various books, and that includes the Gospels, that they were forming their congregations on. And they had a bishop that was at the head of each of the congregation. And so you can see the Pope, which means bishop, is just the head bishop over all the other bishops. And that's as far as his authority goes, and yet they've exalted him to be the vicar of Christ, the voice of Christ. And they don't understand that he's not even a prophet or an apostle or a seer or a revelator. He's just a lowly bishop. And so in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Brigham Young was just the president of the missionary 12. You know, the keys of Peter, James, and John. He was not the president of the church that Joseph Smith started. The keys of Moses. That's the learning of the Jews, is Moses is the Christ. And the prophecies of the Jews about the latter-day Christ is a man like the stories of Moses. It's in their law, Deuteronomy 18, 15 through 19. It's the Jewish law, not the Christian law, not the Islamic law, not Brigham Young's law. It's the Jewish law. It needs to be interpreted by Jews, not Christians, not Islamists, not Brigham Young. And yeah, I had a commenter talking about a couple of missionaries coming to his door, and he's telling them about the Book of Mormon being in the learning of the Jews, and the missionaries respond by saying, well, yeah, Jesus was a Jew. Oh my God. They're clueless, even though they're going over the first vision with people, what Joseph Smith meant in verse 19. That's the first creed of Christianity, Constantine's Nicene Creed. And the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints can't tell you the truth, that they're a fraud, because it would destroy them. You know, what do Mormons do then? Wait a minute, what? You're telling me our church is a lie and there is no Jesus, and you've been telling us that we need to pay reparations to Jesus, called tithing? And you're using it for what? Yeah. And so the church has to maintain the lie. And Mormons, because the church is maintaining the lie, think that they're therefore true, because they're not telling us that they've lied. It's just, we need to have in grade school, after we are taught English and English comprehension, we need to be taught logical, sound arguments of the Socratic method so that we know what a fallacy is, so that we don't spread it all over the place. I mean, seriously, I listen to the news, fallacy arguments all over the place. The church, obviously fallacy arguments all over the place. Our whole nation is swamped with fallacy arguments. Nobody knows or is even claiming to use sound Socratic methodology. It's just, you cannot talk to people who cannot understand that what they're saying is a load of crap. And so, as a revelation, the book of Moses, as we'll call it, rather than doing selections from the book of Moses, is not literal history. Remember, Nicene Creed. That turned the Jewish prophecies of their Christ into literal history about a guy named Jesus, because they chose Jesus out of all of the other Christ names that the Jewish authors would use. And so as you go through your scriptures, yeah, there's lots of different Christs. Start from the beginning. Every single protagonist is a Christ figure. The Antichrist is the antagonist of the story. And there's that war between the two of them. This is a Christ versus an adversarial conflict. And yes, Satan comes from the original Set from Egypt, who murdered his brother Osiris and became the king. And so in Paleo-Hebrew, that's where we get Satan, which everybody thinks it just means adversary. No. It actually has to do with Satan, the king, Set. The N at the end is a suffix determinative in Paleo-Hebrew for king. And so Samson, Shemesh, son. N, king, sun king. Emmanuel, the sun god at noonday. El, God, the Egyptian solar deity. And these are the kinds of things that would help you understand the book of Moses, but obviously you don't know. Because I'm the one who deciphered Paleo-Hebrew, and thus the learning of the Egyptians' language of the Egyptians, which is why the facsimiles were put in the specific order, and Joseph Smith did actually translate them for you, and did actually warn you of the latter-day dates, so that you would know, Mormons, right now, you who are listening, that you, right now, would know. We just had number 2, facsimile number 2. We just had that October 14th, an annular eclipse, the Ring of Fire. Facsimile number 2. Joseph Smith knew this, put it in that place. Because that was a separate thing. That was the thing that was put on the back of the mummy's head. And so Joseph Smith, purposely knowing of the latter days, knowing how to translate Egyptian, put facsimile number 2 as facsimile number 2, so that you would know the date. But Brigham Young wanted nothing to do with the Pearl of Great Price. That was only because of the mission president. That was only because of the mission president, Richards, President Richards, who went to his mission on England. Carbon monoxide poisoning. Dear God. And brought it back, believing that it was the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and that Brigham Young was the new president of the church. And so it wasn't until John Taylor that it was published. But it wasn't part of our canon of Scripture. That was not until the 1981 edition of the triple combination. And so 1981, we get our scriptures reformatted into a quad, and that was the year they joined the newly created Council for National Policy, which are the secret combination of America. Interesting. Anyway, that's not the topic of this video. And so, yes, Joseph Smith knew. And because you believe in Christianity and Jesus, you don't see it. Even after I've done all the videos so that you would see it. Mormons don't believe. They don't want to get it. They can't get it because it means the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is false. But Joseph and the Book of Mormon are still true. That's not good enough for Mormons, is it? It all has to be true. You've been conned. They're using Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon to lure you in, to deceive you. Just like Constantine did. And so, this Moses is the latter-day Moses. It is not the historical Moses. I searched, and then got sidetracked on women's fashion, for a picture of Moses. And his confrontation was Satan. And I finally found one. But I may have to do some alteration with it because Moses does not look like a typical Moses that you would know as Moses. If I were just to put the picture up there on the screen, you would not be able to identify it. You would know it as a painting. You may recognize a conflict, but it could be Jacob and Esau, Cain and Abel. And so there's no way for you to actually know. But that's what's going on, though, is that all of the different Bible stories are actually talking about the same subject matter. And so even though it's different characters, the protagonist and the antagonist are the same prophecy characters for the latter days. And I've been going over with you that the Book of Mormon, by using Lucifer, which came from the Latin Vulgate, not the biblical Hebrew text, not the original Hebrew, means that the author of the Book of Mormon, which is not literal history gold plates, is it? See all the things that you have to erase from your mind because of the church's lies and deceptions upon you. You've got to re-educate yourself. It would be better that if you did it, because you think that a re-education is evil and satanic communism. But that's what people who have been indoctrinated in cult groups have to go through as a re-education program, because of the severe psychological attacks on their thinking processes. And it's horrifying that they send them to psychologists for the re-education. because it was psychology that caused the problem. And so, yes, psychologists are not the people to help. They're the problem. And so you need actual re-education in the sense of public school education. That requires knowing English, knowing the vocabulary, knowing the grammar, knowing logic. That's the kind of re-education that people need. It's because they've got fallacy arguments that they believe are true, and they can't pull out of it. And that's what Mormons are involved with, is they know English, but they've added definitions to words, and that makes their understanding of things fallacious, and they can't pull out of it. So anyway, enough of the introduction. And so, this, even though it's supposed to be part of Genesis, as he's trying to impress upon your minds the Book of Mormon, where Nephi is told by the angel that the great and abominable church will take out plain and precious parts. And so, yes, Mormon apologists especially will try to claim that, oh, well, this is literal history, and even though it's revelation, if we just keep digging up the Middle East, we'll eventually find this document, and it will be perfectly translated like Joseph Smith rendered it. There's numerous fallacies in that. And they do it for the Book of Mormon, too. But no, Joseph Smith is doing a Midrash, Targum, Talmud commentary in the learning of the Jews here. He's expanding upon the story to help explain things. And if you look at the pattern, remember the first vision? Who visits Joseph Smith? Oh, Jesus and Heavenly Father? No, he says that a power from an unseen world attacked him. He doesn't call him by name, but we all understand it. Satan. Oh, it literally happened. Yeah, because he doesn't like Joseph and he wants to murder him. Keep him from starting the Church of Jesus Christ, Latter-day Saints. It was a vision. Didn't happen. Learning of the Jews. Indoctrination is so hard to get rid of, unless you yourself come to recognize it and pull yourself out. That's the best way, but it requires a person to have either a traumatic experience or forced to be taught correctly, which traumatic experiences usually are a forcing. Nobody. And so, yeah, you're supposed to see these patterns. So Jesus, top of the mountain, Satan confronts him. That's because the Jewish authors are talking about the same event of Moses on the mountain. And so Joseph Smith is merely saying, yeah, that Jesus story, you need to plug it in to Moses. And so he does it. That's all he's doing. And yes, then he comes out in 1838 and says, yeah, me too. And there's a reason why. It's because he's the man like Moses to start the church, not the man like Moses at the latter day time period. Oh, right now? You mean he's here? Section 107, verses 92. He would have those gifts. Make you look it up if you're not following me. And so, this transfiguration, yeah, it's also Jesus' transfiguration, where he sees Moses and Elijah. There's a reason, because Malachi and the learning of the Jews. There are stories additionally taught by the Jews about Elijah for the latter days. And one of those has to do with his confrontation with Lilith, the first wife of Adam, which a Jewish Kabbalist in the Middle Ages wrote about. And he did the same thing as the Genesis author of the creation story, from which Lilith is the night. And is just expanding upon it to explain it. Midrash, Targum, Talmud, commentary. And so it's accurate. It should be added to our scriptures, as Brigham Young talks about it to justify polygamy. But the original author of Genesis was wrong in the sense that he didn't want to talk about Lilith as the wife, and instead he wanted to turn the wife into a brand new name called Eve. She did not exist prior to. That author made her up. And it was during the Roman period time, because of the linguistic tells. They're claiming, don't do literal history, remember? That'll confuse you. And so, yeah, all of the stories of Scripture from the Jews are similar. And so as a scientist studying your Scriptures, you look for patterns. And then when you find the differences, then you can go to the Book of Mormon, 1 Nephi chapter 19, verse 10, where we are told that on the brass plates are the fulfillment of Ezekiel 37. It has to do with the latter days. I've done it. It's on academia.edu. But yeah, obviously it's not fully completed. But I've demonstrated how it is to be done. And so yieldeth himself up according to the words of an angel, as a man into the hands of wicked men, to be lifted up according to the words of Enoch. Different people telling anomalies about the same latter-day prophecy. So you look for the patterns of the latter days, and then you see the anomalies. And that's the difference. Those are the additional prophecies of that particular author. And so Joseph Smith does this as well. You see it in his Doctrine and Covenants. You see it in the Pearl of Great Price with the Book of Abraham and the selections from the Book of Moses. Because it's important. And so, the high mountain, it's the latter days. He's the Mormon Christ, raised up among Mormons. The prophecy from the great and abominable church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Top of the mountains. This is the start of his ministry. And this is a pattern match to everybody. Jesus, when does he start his ministry? The birth. That's why there's no childhood, teen years, and married years, because literal history says he starts his ministry at 30 years old. And so then there's confusion about Abraham sacrificing Isaac. Oh no, he can't be a child. How is he going to have Jacob? Oh, well, he was actually 30 years old, just like Jesus. You're missing the point of the Jewish author. And so, yes, the top of the mountain. That's a common theme. Moses, top of the mountain. Jesus, top of the mountain. Moses here, top of the mountain. Utah. You all know it. And so Jesus, when he's born, where is he born? Utah. Phonetically the same as Judah. It says Judea. That's Judah. Which, have you noticed, the Jews call their land that they live on Israel. They're trying to take back their land, as well they should, but as Jews, they only had Judah, not northern Israel. So they didn't call it Judah. They called it Israel. Technically, Israel belonged to Egypt. Shh, don't tell them. That's just something I don't think anybody knew and understood of what they were doing there by naming it Israel. But Palestine, yeah, that's a blatant, obvious one. They're the sea people attacking Israel. Everybody wants a two-state solution. You cannot have it. Dear God, you've got 1.8 billion that want the extermination of the 16 million Jews. You will not have a two-state solution. Anyway, digress. And so, Mormons should be excited. They should be searching their scriptures. They should have already known that when they saw Fox 13 News Utah's segment at the end of their 10 o'clock, or was it 10 o'clock hour or 9 o'clock hour? I think it was right before 10, because 10 starts the morning shows, I think, or something. I don't know. It was the end of their news segment in the morning. The very last thing they covered on the 4th of November 2016. Every Mormon should have been like me, going, "It's the latter days. I knew that tetrad was the pre-show." Perry Packer Scott. But nope, because I'm the only one who actually studied. I'm the only one who knows. And it was all because there were answers that the church wouldn't give me, so I sought out the answers, and since nobody else knew, I had to do pioneer scientific-based research using Socratic methodology to develop theories and run tests, decipher Paleo-Hebrew and Egyptian. Ta-da! And so, yeah, it's worthless to go to any of the church's manuals, commentaries, or Mormon apologists. Everything they say is wrong. Because what I've already gone over with you as a summary is far more and more valuable than anything else that's been told to you. And so I saw that Mormon apologists ask, who is it that's talking to Moses? Is it Jesus or is it Heavenly Father? I don't know. It's transubstantiation, where Heavenly Father is talking as the Son, but as the Father talking as the Son. No. And so, yes, you will see stories where there are multiple characters who are the exact same person. You know, like Joseph Smith's vision in the Kirtland Temple during Passover of the Jews. You know, when he sees Jehovah, Moses, Elishua, Elijah. Yeah, they're all the same. It's the latter-day Christ. And then so each encounter with the individual is a separate one. And so even though it's the Lord God talking about him being the latter-day Christ to Moses, who is the latter-day Christ, it will confuse you if you turn it into literal history. And so the face-to-face, you're supposed to understand he's a human being. Everybody screws that one up. But you also got to understand Joseph Smith also. He's the Christ too. And so Joseph Smith is going to sneak in himself in. And so so there's multiple translations involved here. So not only is it the latter-day Christ, it's also with Joseph Smith, as Joseph Smith tells his 1838 history vision account of the first vision, as well as Lucifer appearing as well to him. That's the exact same pattern here. And so yes, Moses is Joseph Smith, but also the latter-day Christ, as it's also a prophecy of that. And so he's talking about this circle of life. Father becomes the son, son becomes the father. That's the concept, and that earth is for the purpose of humanity, life. And it's not to destroy the earth's resources. People like to go to the extremes on this. We either have to destroy the earth's resources for personal gain, or we have to let nature destroy mankind. Survival of the fittest versus natural selection. Who's going to win? No, the Bible makes it very clear. You beautify the earth. You turn it into a garden paradise. That's the one thing that no other creature on earth can do. Only man can beautify and domesticate and harmonize the earth. But you see, man doesn't want to do it. Man would rather destroy everything. But yeah, it has nothing to do with man can only feel pain. Animals can't feel pain. Man can, and that's all crap. Fallacy arguments, all. The only thing is blatantly obvious. We're the only ones who can domesticate the earth. You know, beavers can build dams, but they can't domesticate the earth. Chimpanzees, monkey see, monkey do. That's as far as they can go. And so, yeah, all of these claims, no. And it's, I'm not going there. I'm not going there. Nope. But people think that, well, when an animal does it, I can do it. And so then you get psychologists that abuse us and say, you guys are rodents. You're just like the rodents I torture in my lab. Dear God. It's for science. It's science. I'm a psychologist. It's science. No, it's not. You're torturing animals because you're an evil person. Dear God, you're transposing that onto humans. Just like the Nazi psychologists. And so, yeah, that's what you're supposed to understand by worlds without number. And they don't talk about Lucifer. Oh, there it is. Confrontation with Satan. So, I explained it. Now you know. Dun dun dun. And so then the retelling of the creation story, because that's what it's all about for Joseph. Ezekiel 37, fulfilling it. He couldn't do it. I did it. And so, yes, if we get to Zion, Mormons don't want to go to Zion. They'd rather die. But if Mormons are traumatized sufficiently and survive, maybe we can get to Zion and I can do this for you and complete it. Maybe then you'll care. And so, yes, Mormon apologists argue and complain about form and void without form and void. No, you're missing the point. That's the Ogdode story inserted into the Heliopolis creation story. What? And then spiritually before they were naturally. And yeah, you can't listen to prophets' commentaries on this either. I know I was working on the revision of the footnotes for the 2009 Spanish edition with the Gospel Guide to the Scriptures rather than the Topical Guide and Bible Dictionary. And they told us you can only reference in the footnotes other passages of Scripture. You can't put your own IE, OR in there. We need to remove those. And only if a president of the church got up at the pulpit of conference and said such a thing can you then justify putting in a footnote. And so, yeah, that's what they're doing with Nelson. Everything's getting a massive workover every time Nelson speaks. It's pathetic. He's not a translator, guys. He's wrong. Oh, no. He has to be true. And so the Bible needs to change. Science needs to change. Because the living prophet of Jesus said so. Oh, it is so pathetic to see the crash and burn of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and Mormons don't see it coming. I do the videos, but Mormons don't see the big picture. They're angry. Travis! He's a good man. No, he's Lucifer by name. He's in Moses. Who appeared to Joseph Smith? Nelson, before he was born. It's a good thing that this is like an hour into the video so that only the righteous chosen ones can hear that. But yes, as I told you, these are all prophecies. They're about actual characters of the latter days. And since Nelson is it, Russell, Marion, Mars attacks. Lucifer, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of Venus? Even though he's married to, but still. Dear God. Nelson is Lucifer, the falling star, and he fell on his 2 days after his birthday, and the Perseid meteor showers fell on his birthday. And we have the Leonids falling at the neck on the 24th. Neck of Leo, Utah, Judah, the lion. Oh, hilarious. Hilarious. Should I do that as the thumbnail picture and confuse Mormons who don't listen this far into the video? What is he talking about? I don't see the connection here. I should look for that picture. We're going to waste some time. So yeah, this is going to be a long video, even though once I get this, it should go quicker. Because Enoch, yeah, it's not about literal history. Enoch, remember? It's about the man like Moses who takes Mormons to Zion in the latter days. They just talk about it as if he comes from outer space. Am I premature, or are you going to cooperate with me? Really frustrating. And they always say, oh, you got to clear out your browser history and your cache. And no, that's never the problem, because I do that and it's still giving me the problem. Something else. So Smith attacked by Lucifer in the first vision. We're just way too slow for me. All they have are the pillars of light. Ooh, there's a red-robed Jesus. That's cool. Dean photo art. Doesn't say the name. Gotta put it in a different file. Don't want to put it with women's fashion. Red robe. Otherwise, I'll never find it. See, all these different accounts, you guys just don't know what you're talking about. He's talking to different people. Come on, guys. Nobody have him attacked by Satan? Ooh. Joseph Smith arm wrestling Nelson. It's the ugly Joseph Smith. It's not his picture. It's not his faith. Or face. Joseph Smith arm wrestling Lucifer. And I can put Nelson's face on there. angels. It has to be faith promoting. His assassination has to be faith promoting. Okay, we're gonna do this because this is taking way too long. Oh, that's the Book of Mormon. Oh. I see your collection. I thought that was him praying in the grove. Joseph Smith gets the plates. They're real. They're 200 pounds. And Joseph Smith just picks them up like they're nothing. So then we'll have to go back to this other one. Yeah, him squatting. Let's see if we can get a bigger picture. There we go. Alrighty, so that'll be a different picture than the one I had originally thought with Moses. Or I can do both. I can do both. Seriously, no Mormon painted Joseph Smith getting attacked by Satan because it's not faith promoting? Seriously? Nobody wants to do it, huh? God, I have to do everything for you people. You people! Notice I did find the picture of the destroying angel. That's not Satan's church. Didn't you watch The Nine Gates? Johnny Depp? Mormons are so frustrating. They only want to talk about what's faith promoting. All the wars in the Book of Mormon, I'll never need that when I'm being attacked by the enemy who's coming to destroy us, that Joseph Smith warned us about. Nope. Not faith promoting. You do know why that's why the wars are in there for you. Because the day that shall burn as an oven, civil war in America. You need to be protected. You can't be protected if you're just going to lay down and die. I'm turning the other cheek because I don't know the learning of the Jewish law. The Simpsons humiliate me for my beliefs that are wrong. So yeah, I told you about Eve. Not real. How Satan became the devil. Here we go. And so here, it is fascinating to me that they prophesied of Nelson taking over. And taking over when he did, putting him in the order that it happened. After the date of the start of the ministry of the Christ. 23rd September 2017. From Revelation 12. Everybody talks about it. Utah. The birth. Is the start of the ministry. And so Lucifer then comes after. Sure enough, he did. Monson dies. And his birthday was on the solar eclipse time. And it's the Egyptian calendar, ancient religion's New Year. That blew my mind. So yeah, I really want that one for next year. He still hasn't published it yet. And so, if it is just an attack on the 24th, and then from there on out, it becomes terrorism in America, where we still have to live our lives and pay our bills and eat. work, then yeah, I can still continue to collect DVDs, because for the 5th, Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 2 is coming out, and Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny. So yeah, I have my backup plans too. If the enemy fails, I've got my backup plans. But yeah, if nothing happens and it isn't a big enough event for Mormons to be traumatized sufficiently, then yeah, it's going to be frustrating, because Mormons are still not going to believe. What do I do? Do I keep doing videos for the handful of few that are the chosen ones? Or because doing videos takes up a lot of my day, and there's a lot of stuff that I need to get done and would like to get done. And so yeah, when I'm looking for pictures, I sometimes get distracted with women's fashion. But having to do videos keeps me from women's fashion. And so, yes, the concept of a premortal council in heaven comes from the Egyptians, but also is a prophecy of the latter days. This is where he falls. This is his name. Why it's called Lucifer, he who fell from heaven. And so Moses specifically goes over the premortal council in heaven for this purpose. And if you're going to be stuck on literal history, you're going to end up creating a BYU production of Saturday's Warrior. And creating your own doctrines that the church is going to come out with a statement saying, no! You don't get revelations. We do. Because it's our title. Right, Cook? Oh my God. And so, yeah, from the beginning, yeah, the start of the latter days. Nelson was from the start of the latter days too. Even though they're using it in a story form about the premortal council in heaven. And so, yes, Nelson and the Christ, you do know it's me, right? Mormons are gone who don't believe. You do know it's me, right? I have those gifts: prophet, seer, revelator, translator of Paleo, Hebrew, and Egyptian. So it is blatantly obvious, but I don't know, Mormons get weird thinking that I think I'm Jesus. And so yes, Nelson and I are technically brothers in the sense of brother and sister in the church. And so, yes, Nelson is at the head of the church of Lucifer. It's Lucifer's church. Lucifer's at the head, just like the Book of Mormon tells us it is. And he's saying he's going to redeem all mankind and take away your agency. That's what he's been doing, if you hadn't noticed. You must pay tithing. Your family cannot be redeemed unless you pay your tithing and do their work for them. You can't be redeemed unless you pay us tithing and get redeemed and do the work. And so, yes, there's the scandals about people who aren't family, who are also threatened. You have to go to the temple and do these other names that we have for you. Pay your tithing or you won't redeem them. That whole baptism for the dead has been taken to the extreme to redeem all mankind. And Mormons use the excuse, well, they can choose when they're dead or as they're already dead when their judgment comes. That's not free agency. That's not free will, whatever you want to call it. You are not free if somebody else is forcing you into it and just saying, well, you can choose. It's like a kidnapper. You can choose to come with me peacefully, or I can pull a gun on or knife on you. You choose. It's up to you. I choose not to be kidnapped? No. Everybody must be kidnapped. But I'm free to choose, right? No. Freedom to choose is selective. You'll hear the prophets talk about that. They're saying that it's not free agency. You choose to obey or you don't choose to obey. And if you don't choose to obey, you die. But you can choose. It's your agency, but it's not free. You have to pay. And Mormons miss it. They're not listening to them. Oh my God. And so, dear God. And so, yes, it requires the Christ character to adhere to the Scriptures, to follow the Scriptures. The prophecies have already been given. And that's what Nelson doesn't understand, is that he's forcing the fulfillment of Scripture. With Hinckley, he built the conference center specifically to fulfill partially the Isaiah prophecy that all nations shall come to Zion. And in the top of the mountains, he at least understood that the top of the mountains was Utah, but he deceives Mormons into thinking that it's the true church, not the church of the devil. As Brigham Young is the counter devil for Joseph Smith also, in case you didn't know. And so that's what Nelson is doing. When he makes these changes, he's violating Scripture. When he quotes from forged documents of the Danites, he's taking away the plain and precious truths of the Scriptures that were already taken away by Brigham Young. He's just reinforcing Brigham Young and his authority rather than Joseph Smith, having replaced him and replaced the Book of Mormon. And so the tithing in section 119, it's a direct violation of the Book of Mormon against no priestcraft. And even Moroni build up churches to be forgiven of, or pay money to be forgiven of your sins. In is it 8? I saw that the other day when I was perusing the Scriptures. But he's talking to us right now, because it's not literal history, remember? And sure enough, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints says you must atone with reparations to Jesus called tithing, or you cannot be redeemed. Straight from the Book of Mormon about the great and abominable church. And Mormons don't see it, because it can't be true. We're the Church of the Lamb, not the devil. And so you get that dumbass on his website that says that Jesus is the symbol of the inverted pentagram and it was corrupted with that Jewish Kabbalah tetragram. He literally was fulfilling the Isaiah prophecy of calling the inverted pentagram of evil good, and good as evil. Directly. It was a perfect illustration of the fulfillment of that prophecy of Isaiah. And Mormons just turned it back on me and said, no, you they don't say it. They're too indoctrinated, too brainwashed, too zombie occult apocalypse. And so, yes, Satan rebelled. Nelson's rebelling. He's touching the Ark of the Covenant. Verse 8, section 85. You know, the one mighty and strong is the man like Moses Christ. Sought to destroy the agency of Mormons, the saints, which I, the Lord, had given him. Joseph Smith, the founder. Also that I should give unto him my own power. Yeah. Joseph Smith wanted to have every Mormon be a prophet, seer, revelator, translator. But nope. They didn't want. They wanted Jesus. And so, because Nelson wants power, he is cast down. That prophecy was fulfilled. And yes, he is lying to you. He is the father of all lies to Mormons, to deceive and blind Mormons, to lead them captive at his will, even as many as who would not hearken unto my voice. Prophecy fulfilled. Indagada Davida, baby, don't you know that you drive me crazy? And so here, yet all of this is just a retelling of the Genesis story with little additions here and there, or changes. Don't be caught up on thinking it's literal history. And so you have Eve's speaking role that's in the temple now, to deceive women into thinking they now have agency. They don't have to obey their husbands. Nope. Sorry, women. You have to obey your husbands still. And Adam's sacrifice. Oh God, hear the words of my mouth. Pele El. That was John Taylor. And it's crude, but you know, we're mouth to God is the literal translation. So, oh God, hear the words of my mouth. Mouth to God. Crude. It could have been improved upon. But you think it's Joseph. And it's been removed. So all the younger generation will never know about it. Because the older generation, oh, we can't talk about it. I'll have to kill myself if I talk about it. And you don't see how you're in bondage. And so, yeah, Cain and Abel, Osiris and Set. And so there is a weirdness in there because Adam and Eve have another son and they call him Set. And Set is the ancestor of Noah, who is the latter-day Christ. Hilarious what the Jewish author was doing there. And so, yes, it technically should be Cain, who is the ancestor of Noah, but the Jewish authors write what they write. He didn't want to call Cain Seth, so he has another child named Seth. But yes, out of the great and abominable church comes the Christ for Mormons. And I've been telling you this, and most likely later in the videos that are hours long. So we'll do it again here. You have Joseph Smith Sr. He's the bloodline of the York Rites Knights Templar. He's the keeper of the Holy Grail, the bloodline. And so Joseph Jr. becomes the Christ to start the church, the bloodline. This is why, this is how. This is the Jewish Kabbalah, this is the Freemasonry of the York Rites, their understanding of things. And because of 9/11, 1826, Joseph Smith Sr. knew his duty and role as the Master Mason of that lodge. And so, thus, having already prepared Junior for the role with his rock and a hat trick, he babysat Martin Harris while the real men write the Book of Mormon. And then he lost the 116 pages, and so Senior had to rewrite them. But Hiram is the other bloodline, because he too is the only other person who is a prophet, seer, revelator. But he's a patriarch once Senior dies. And so, the two of them dying, Brigham Young knew what he was doing, cut off the authority of the church. Osiris was murdered by his brother, Brigham. And the wife needed to flee in the wilderness. She came to this valley with Brigham, with Joseph Fielding Smith Sr., who is the bloodline. And they at least knew because of the patriarchs until Eldridge Smith, who had to be a direct descendant of Hiram. Then Kimball stopped it. But it's okay. The Latter-day Christ had now been born 9 years ago. It was 79 when Kimball declared over the pulpit of conference that Eldridge Smith is emeritus status. And that was a big shock. What? Well, who's replacing him? Nobody. It's dead. The bloodline is dead. My grandpa, Heber C. Kimball, was the one who actually took in and took care of Hiram's wife and son. And so, yes, that's why Joseph Smith Sr. was such an ass, an authoritarian. It's because he got fully indoctrinated by Heber. And it's ironic that Joseph Smith Sr. was the one who did the First Presidency statement on the One Mighty and Strong, and claims he has no clue what it means. Rambled on for pages, and all he can conclude was, I have no idea. I don't know. I was not taught in the learning of the Jews to understand that it's prophecy. And that's the sad reality. But through his lineage would come the Christ to rescue Mormons. Joseph Smith knew this, and he's talking about it here. And so that's why She, Hiram's wife, was the only Smith of the immediate family to go with Brigham Young. Nobody else did, because they all knew he was evil. Emma knew he was evil, wanted nothing to do with him. She was not approached by the Danites to let Joseph marry other women. That was a lie. But, yeah, and so that's where John Solomon Fulmer comes in, too. The other seed is because he was the only one who stood by Joseph and Hiram to the end. Not a single Mormon was there with Joseph. Willard and John Taylor were there to assassinate Joseph, to make sure it happened. They were the backup plan in case the mob failed. And they did. And so, yes, Hiram, or Willard Richards, succeeded. As John Taylor was the one who would have wrestled the single shot from Hiram, and it went off and up and into his jaw, felled him to the ground. And then Joseph Smith saw that after he chased out the mob and shot John Taylor, chased him under the bed. And then came over to his brother mourning. And then Willard Richards, who got a 6-shooter of himself after he saw the 6-shooter given to him by Wheelock that came to visit, claiming that he was getting the sacrament wine. Yeah, he was getting a pistol himself. Shot Joseph Smith in the back, took his body, dumped it out the window. Came back over Hiram Smith, shot him right here. Caused the blood stain on the floor that Kimball tried to have cleaned up, because he knew it wasn't Joseph's blood anymore, so the plaque had to come down. And tried to clean up the crime scene so that Mormons would never suspect anything other than the scenario that the church was telling you about it. That it was those black-faced mobs. So yeah, Kimball knew all about it. He knew he was evil. And so his miracle of forgiveness, yeah, the book of pure evil. And they forced us to read it before our missions. Thank you, Benson. But yeah, Benson knew too. He knew that the Christ had been born. That's why he did to the youth of the noble birthright, to us Aaronic priesthood holders when I had just become a priest. He knew exactly what he was doing. He was purposely indoctrinating us so that the Christ would not be the Christ. They were doing all that they could to do what they did to Joseph Fielding Smith Sr. because it worked so well. Yeah. So John Solomon Fulmer, because of his loyalty, Joseph Smith whispered into his ear and said that he needed to go with Brigham Young also. And so Desdemona Fulmer got sealed to Joseph Smith rather than a Danite, rather than Brigham Young or Heber C. Kimball, so that she can be taken care of, and thus gave a way for John Solomon Fulmer to go with Brigham Young rather than be excommunicated by him. And so he had to have a token polygamous wife to appease Brigham Young, because that's what criminals do. They compromise you. They make you commit crime and sin so that they own you. But he knew from Joseph Smith that night, put your head on my shoulder. Let me tell you about the Danites and the Latter-day Christ. And so, yep. So yeah, as I've already told you, it's me. I come from both of them. Through my grandma Fulmer, who married the sun god at noonday. Louis Benoni Goodsell. God Sol, which is god of the sun, sun god. And so, yeah, my dad was the one who named me. He gave my mom free agency to choose. My mom being Judith, Judy, Judah, Judas, and yes, she did betray me too, just as the prophecy said. My mom and dad would betray me. They did. But yeah, he told my mom, Quentin, Vincent, or Travis. Because he knew she didn't like Quentin or Vincent. Right, Quentin Cook? She wanted Elvis, I think. And so, yeah, Dad said, no, I am the presider. And yep, so I got named by my dad for that reason. And yeah, we're all alphabetically backwards. They claim it was a coincidence. It wasn't intended. Travis, Todd, Tiffany, Tara Lynn, Tabitha, alphabetically backwards. But yeah, my name, Travis, in Paleo-Hebrew, it would be the cross symbol as the prefix determinative for the crossroads of the sun god, which Travis means he who is from the crossroads, and thus with the last name, sun god, crossroads of the sun god. The shadows of the solar eclipses, the 3 days of darkness on the face of the earth, forming the Paleo-Hebrew A for the first, but the cross to complete the A is the T, the T cross in Paleo-Hebrew. So Jesus wasn't crucified on an actual cross. That's the sign in the heavens. It's not literal history. That's why the Romans did poles, not crosses. But Christians want to rewrite history. And so, yes, my name literally means the fulfillment of the prophecy. Not just me as the name. And so then the rest of the name are, take out the vowels, and the V, which is a B in Hebrew. And so it's Rab for rabbi, master. Jesus is called Rabbi. Jesus is the Latter-day Christ. He's me. So yes, I am Jesus. Just not Jesus of Christianity, the learning of the Jews. So the cross at the beginning with Rabbi, the Rabbi of rabbis, the Latter-day Christ. And the S at the end, that's the Latin grammatical termination for masculine singular. So you can take that off. Just like Zeus. The us is the Greek masculine singular. So you take that off and you got zu, or za. And so it's a pictorial match to the Hebrew god Yah. The Z and the E in Paleo-Hebrew. They're the same deity. And it's all me. So yeah, here, we got that in. And nobody's listening because we're like, it was like 15 minutes when I got interrupted by the noise in the car. And the carbon monoxide poisoning. And so, yeah, we're at 1 hour and 30 minutes, approximately. And we're only in chapter 6. And so, yeah, baptism, that's the whole Osiris process with the Nile River and all that stuff. part the waters, dry land appears. Baptism. Creation story. And the Nile inundation. All of it translated in different ways. That's why I can't do a simple one word per hieroglyphic sign translation, because that's not how it works. It's a whole concept. You show a beetle in Egyptian, and you're supposed to understand that in all of its aspects, not just as a beetle. You can't just say, well, that's a beetle, because that's insufficient. It's also the sun god Amun going across the sky being pushed by a beetle. And so yes, you'll see the Ogdod story with a beetle carrying the ark across the sky. The Ark of the Covenant is the sun god at noonday. It's his authority. And so section 85 verse 8, Nelson is touching the Ark of the Covenant. He's not supposed to. It's not his church. Doesn't belong to him. He's only the president of the 12, the keys of Peter. And then they trick you by making him the first presidency and then having another president of the 12. Because that's all they did. It's like Brigham Young, back in 1838, after cooing the church and becoming the president of the 12, he then has 2 counselors and calls himself the first presidency of the 12, and then has another president for the 12. Joseph would never have allowed that. But he did it after he died. So that's that with that. So 7, this is Enoch. And so yeah, the city of Zion, that's the latter-day millennial Zion. But they're telling it as Joseph Smith was taken from the earth. Died. So was kingdom. Gone. Brigham Young destroyed it. Murdered Joseph and destroyed the kingdom. And so it's going to come back in the latter days with the Christ. The latter-day Christ. Not Joseph, but the latter-day Christ. And so, yes, that's why Enoch foresees the coming of the Christ, Son of Man. And then the gathering, the keys of Moses, second coming. This is actually the first coming. But yeah, Enoch, first coming, Joseph Smith, second coming, man like Moses of the latter days. Return to Zion. Real simple when you use the learning of the Jews. And so then we get into Noah, the Christ. It's just a different story now. The Genesis author combined all of these separate stories into one, just like in that passage from the Book of Mormon I went over you with Zenock, Neum, and etc. He's just combining them all together. And this is just the stories being all combined together. I'm going to do a check. Okay. So, yeah, Genesis 5. I'm going to check Blue Letter Bible. Check the Paleo-Hebrew of Enoch. So bear with me as we wait for the processing of Google Chrome. See, that's what happens. I'm allergic to pollution. Builds up the phlegm to protect me by cutting off my breathing. There's poisonous air, Travis. We cannot have you breathe it. And so we'll cut off air and kill you to protect you. The white screen of death. And so, yes, also in the selections from the Book of Moses, you have the daughters of the sons of God marrying the sons of men, rather than the sons of God, the sons of, how does it work? The sons of God marrying the daughters of men. That's the Genesis account version, and Joseph Smith changes it to the daughters of the sons of God marrying the sons of men. And that is a situation where if it's the bloodline, it's completely tainted and ruined, because now you have somebody who's not of the faith, who's being mixed with the bloodline that's supposed to be. And that's why the Book of Abraham has the specific bloodline of Canaan with the daughter of Ham and Egyptus, which is the Latin. Everybody gets confused and conflicted on that. But talks about Pharaoh having to preserve the bloodline. That's why the bloodline is involved here. It's because of Joseph Smith Sr. and Joseph Jr. being the bloodline Christ, and then Hiram being the bloodline Christ for the latter days. Because if they just abandoned the church and didn't go with Brigham, then yeah, the whole prophecy would be ruined and destroyed. And so that's why they're focused on, whoops. I only typed in Genesis, so now I have to click over to 18. Begat Enoch. Okay. So then we change to Westminster Leningrad Codex. Scroll down to 18. Okay. It's not the T, it's the K. So the latter, interesting. That's the prefix determinative. And then the king and the papyrus scroll. So the king of prophecy from heaven, Enoch. Alrighty. And then Noah is added that he tried to warn the people. And the people wouldn't listen, and they all were utterly destroyed. Do you recognize that pattern? It's in the Book of Mormon. Joseph Smith, verse 40, second vision. You'll be cut off, because it's precisely as it stands in Acts, which is destroyed, not cut off, which is about Deuteronomy 18, 15 through 19. The Christ of the Jews. Whoops. Was it? No wonder. Moses. And yeah, moves mountains. Yeah, we can move mountains. Kennecott copper. They move mountains all the time. And there's a problem with that. They're not replenishing the soil. So it's easy to move mountains, but people think, no, it's got to be magical powers. Move. No. City of Zion is established. I really hope so. There's a lot of work I need to do. I can't be bothered by the church trying to assassinate me. in his atoning sacrifice. That's the lamb. Jupiter is in Aries, the ram, the sacrificial ram. That's the sacrifice. But yeah, I have done a lot of sacrificing too at the hands of the church. Okay. And then the last one, Methuselah prophesies. See, Mormons don't see it as a prophecy. He's just, oh yay, he's talking as a prophet, and therefore it's a prophecy because he's a prophet and he's talking. Not an actual prediction of the future. Nelson won't do it. He doesn't want to be wrong. Which, since this could be the final video, and we're making it long anyway, Joseph Smith Sr., as a Jewish Kabbalist of the New Israelites in Vermont, knew of Nathaniel Wood's wood scrape, where he prophesied of a day of destruction. And so gathered his members. Joseph Smith Sr. was not a member, but he knew of this because it was disbanded. But they gathered at their congregation there in southern Vermont, next door to where the Cowdreys lived. You had to take a road to get to it, but it's next door. You have to think in terms of Alberta, because Alberta was originally Lethbridge by those heathens. And so when the saints were told to create a wall for no pioneers to cross, 1857, the Mountain Meadows Massacre with Senator Mike Lee's third great-grandfather, they went up into Alberta. And the people, oh hell no, and they created a law saying that no Mormon is allowed within a certain radius around the city. And that's why all the cities are pocket cities with the roads connecting them. So it's the same concept. And so Senior, knowing of the failed prophecy of Nathaniel Wood, goes about, lives his life as normal. And then 9/11, 1826. And his whole life changed. He was now responsible for finishing the publication which became known as the Book of Mormon, and had to rewrite the 116 pages. And as I've gone over with you all these years, there are prophecies. It's by him. And they've happened. He literally is a prophet. He literally prophesied, and they happened. Not just Nelson's name. And so, yes, he even used the 600 years from the time Lehi left Jerusalem, Jesus is born, which would have been 4 CE. On 8 April 4 CE, there was an annular eclipse over Russia. That was Smith Sr. That's him. And it's not literal history. It is the most awesome thing I have ever seen. Even though Lucifer was pretty good. Because it's 20 years before 8 April 2024. The final day of the latter days from Revelation 19. The third day of darkness, which is a total solar eclipse. And so what he was telling you is that 2020 is prophesied to be the Exodus year. A man like Moses confronts Pharaoh, creeping death, parting of the waters to pass through on dry ground. So what happened that year? I sued the church. In court. Creeping death. And I even parted the waters. That's how awesome Joseph Smith Sr. is as a prophet. And not a single Mormon knows it. And one of my viewers is now having marital problems because his wife doesn't believe that he was a patriarch. It's just astoundingly awesome to be that accurate as a prophet. And Mormons have long since given up because they don't believe. And they're going to be traumatized. And hopefully they'll figure it out themselves, but I hear too many ex-Mormons complain about going through a faith crisis and they need coddling. Pacifying, flattering, and deceiving. It's like they never learned. And so, yeah. Joseph Smith makes sure that you understand. And it wasn't Joseph. I should have put this at the beginning. Sidney Rigdon is the one who's working on this. It's his reward for working on the Book of Mormon. It's his payment. Because they couldn't pay him. They didn't have any money. They still needed Norton Harris in the end. And they couldn't get an advance by the Batavian press that was giving it to William Morgan because of 9/11/1826. And so that's the way it happened. And so Senior had to rewrite the 116 pages and so forth. And so this revision was just what Sidney Rigdon left the Campbellites for. Alexander Campbell only wanted to revise the New Testament, didn't want to harmonize the Old Testament with the New Testament to be the prophecies of the fulfillment as he had originally believed. And so he got to do that because the Smiths knew and understood that they're all the same prophecies. So they do need to be harmonized in that sense, but kept separate in the stories that they are because of that one passage in the Book of Mormon that I pointed out to you. Because there are extra prophecies in different stories. And so you're not supposed to harmonize the Gospels to merge them into one. No. You can, as long as you understand that one Book of Mormon passage. That you say, according to Luke, Jesus then went off to blah, blah, blah. Or according to John, Mary went to have sex with Jesus when she saw him, that he was not dead. And he said, nope, it's not 8 April 2024 yet. No touchy. Abstinence only. Woman. Which, again, it means a mother who's had children. And so, yeah, it's prophecies. So, yeah, the prophecies of 2 wives. Yeah, I've had 2 wives. Both failed. But there's the prophecy that I'm supposed to get one in Zion. But if Mormons don't want to go, alone in my cave, fulfilling ether, I am. So, yep, that was my intention with the Book of Mormon series that I retired with, was just to go over each of the prophecies in the Book of Mormon for you. And so hopefully this gives you a better understanding of how to apply the techniques that I summarized for you at the beginning into other scriptures. Because, yeah, it's not just the canonized scriptures. It's other scriptures that were rejected. Got to do the same thing to them, too. And the Romans, Their myths are not myths, they're scriptures. And the Greeks, and even the Babylonians, and the Persians, all come from the Egyptians. It was Constantine that put a stop to all of it. And so the Quran is not. There are some things in there that makes you go, is there another document where this is, or did he just make this up? And it's most likely he made it up, but it's of interest. But they're both obviously false because they've replaced the Jews. People don't get that because they have to have their religion true, right, Mormons? Mormons aren't listening. So, time to start working on the pictures.